This episode of Now This Is Lit is brought to you by Audible. Check the link in the description to get your first Star Wars audiobook free. Everyone loves free things. Click that link. Do it. This show is also brought to you by our patrons. If you want to support the show in a different way, with just $1 a month, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. You can get a sticker. You can get access to an exclusive show that we do every month that's wild and chaotic and fun and something you can only get by becoming a member of the Patreon. There'll be so many more perks very, very soon. But for now, do you want a sticker? Do you want a sticker that has a Now This Is Lit logo? Because it's fantastic and I love them. But I also want to give them away because there's just a stack of stickers on my desk. So if you want one, $1 a month. Patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You're listening to Now This Is Lit, a podcast about Star Wars books, the people who make them, and the readers who just can't get enough of them. I'm your host, Meg Dowell. I use she, her pronouns. Today, in my world anyway, it is all about Lamar Giles and his new book, Sanctuary, a Bad Batch novel. Not only do I have an interview for you here today, which is very fun, and I enjoyed very much, he and I also talked a few months ago for Star Wars Insider. In that interview, you can now read. It's out today, and I highly recommend it. You can get it from your library, or you can buy it places if you want to. I enjoyed this book so much more having gotten the chance to talk to Lamar about it before I'd even read it, and being able to talk to him again, having read the book, just made the overall experience even better than it was before. So if you can, if you want to, go read our interview in Star Wars Insider, which is a different interview than you'll hear here. I also hope that you enjoy listening to our conversation now. Happy reading and listening and Star Warsing, I guess. While we're on somewhat of a similar subject, you have written not all on your own, but the physical writing of a book you have done.
Yes.
In the Star Wars variety.
Mm-hmm.
You wrote a Bad Batch book.
Yeah.
And first of all, I was so excited about this book when I first heard about it, both because I knew you were going to be writing it and because I love the Bad Batch. And I think anytime Star Wars books are able to tie into stories that are told in different mediums are just so fascinating to me. Because every different thing you get, whether it's a show or a book or a movie, you kind of you get a different look at maybe the same characters or the same events. And that's always something that's very interesting to me. And so I've been excited for this book for a long time. And you and I talked a few months ago about this book, and I hadn't read it. And as we were talking about it then, I was like, I am more excited about this book now than I've ever been, because you're saying things about it without saying things about it, and I don't know what happens in this book. But now we get to come back and talk about it now that I have read it. And I will say, not only lived up to my expectations, but far exceeded them. Let's start with that, because I just have to say that whenever my review does come out, it's going to be quite positive, because I had a great time.
But thank you. It's a relief to hear you say that, and I've heard it from a few other people at this point too. And the thing, maybe I mentioned it when we were talking before, I'm a fan too. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do right by my people, and I hope mostly I've done that.
Oh, you have. I think the more that I read Star Wars books, the more I can tell, because if you're writing Star Wars, you're going to be somewhat a fan of Star Wars these days, especially. That's usually true. And I can tell just by reading Sanctuary, the things in Star Wars that you really, really love, because you get into whether it be the action or the characters or whatever it might be. And I'm like, he is having the time of his life writing this book, and it comes through on the page. And that just makes it's already so well written. It's already a great story. Already love these characters, but the fact that you put so much passion behind it and that comes through so well, it just makes the whole experience of reading it even better. So,
Thank you for saying that. I'm glad. I'm glad it came across that way. Um, I've loved Star Wars as far back as I can remember. So this was a dream project, and I'm glad it's connecting to people who also feel that way about Star Wars.
yes, absolutely. So let's start. Tell me a little about the research that went into the research, the preparation that went into getting ready to write this book, because you'd written a story for Star Wars before, and this was your first experience writing a full-length novel, but you'd watched some of the Bad Batch already. I remember from our last conversation. So tell me a little bit about how you kind of got into the mindset of not only like interacting with these characters, but writing them and creating a whole story around them.
Sure. And if I said this to you before, forgive me, but I think it still holds true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was a fan of the Bad Batch before this opportunity came up, but my level of fandom felt like someone who's enthusiastic about science. And then this challenge comes up that's really now you have to try to get a bachelor's degree in physics. It's like the difference between the two. Casually sitting back and watching the show and now having the opportunity to possibly write, it became going back to every on-screen appearance of Clone Force 99, which was going back into the Clone Wars themselves and then rewatching everything I'd already seen. And at the point when the opportunity came, season 3 hadn't come out yet. And one of the directives I had was I got to figure out a way to work this story into season 2 without contradicting anything that came before it or anything that's going to come after. And the question I had that I was scared to ask was, well, I don't know what comes after. I don't know what happens in season 3. And and I had a conversation with some people on the team, and they gave me some little highlights of things to expect. So that was interesting, but I still had no clear picture. So it really became just like, how do I tell a story that fits what we already know and can't possibly go into contradicting anything that's coming? And that became the answer in which readers will see that I don't think this is spoiler stuff, is I had to create several new characters
Mm-hmm.
that I knew could not possibly appear in season 3.
Yeah. That sounds like so much fun and a little bit like a puzzle where, oh, I know these characters. I've seen a lot of the stories that they're in, but I think like from what I know about writing in Star Wars, I don't know anything from experience, but I've talked to a lot of authors, and a lot of the challenge is, um, where did my train of thought go? I was going somewhere with that. I rambled too much. The challenge with that, which can be fun despite being a challenge, is you're not just observing, you are creating.
Yeah,
And to have to kind of figure out how can I tell a really good story that fits into the larger Star Wars story, but also like can stand alone in a way in its own um thing, which your book does very well, because it feels to me a lot like um an extended episode of the Bad Batch in a good way, where like the tone, the characters, all these adventures that they're going on, it's very much like, oh, I'm watching this on screen, but actually no, I'm reading it, which for me, as someone who just loves to read, was so exciting, because I'm like, oh, there is no more Bad Batch, the show, but there almost kind of is, in that we're getting more stories, or we're getting another story in this book, and that was very, very fun for me.
well, and I'm glad that came across well because one of the things I had in mind, and I don't know if it reads that way, but I was thinking of it in terms of what if I had 3 episodes right
Yes.
in sort of wedged in this place where we don't know what's going on with the team, and
Mm.
that's the way I tried to approach it. Like I got a 3 episode arc that I can slot right into season 2.
Yeah. Oh, it feels exactly like that, because it is your like traditional 3 act structure, but it does, each individual piece of it does feel like its own little complete story within that. And I do remember sitting there reading it and being like, I wish I could watch this. And like sitting there reading it is great. And there's a reason that Star Wars books are separate from shows, and there are a lot of benefits to that. But there was part of me that was like, oh, but like, what if like we could see all of this happening? And that really speaks to like how well you really got into the heads of the characters and really, created this um adventure with them. And it really did feel like more Bad Batch, even if there isn't more.
Well, I guess your lips to the galaxy's ears. Who knows what might happen, and who knows? You know what I'm saying? I would
I know
like to
nothing.
watch it too.
I mean, we can hope, right?
Yeah, we can hope. I mean, who knows? You know.
Um, okay, I'll ask you this. So, you've written plenty of books and stories before, and there are a lot of things about writing Star Wars specifically that are unique to Star Wars, but also writing a story, writing a book is writing a book. But I'd love to know um, if there's anything that surprised you or that you were not expecting
Yeah.
when you were working on this book, because I think like something I've discovered, doing whatever form of my own writing that I've done, is sometimes the most fun part about it is um the unknown of it, where you're writing something and you know the characters a little bit and you know kind of where you want to go with certain things, but also as you're kind of developing the story, it kind of just starts to sometimes tell itself and you're like, well, I didn't intend for that to happen, but it did. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe there's a three-part answer here, I guess.
Mm.
I think I got three parts to this. Um, the first being that I was surprised that the team was not as strict on what I could do
Mm.
as I expected. So I went into it thinking there would be a lot of rules, a lot of and there are rules and there are
Mm.
direction, but it's mild. Like
Mm.
they trusted me to tell the story I needed to tell. And that goes into the second part of the answer, which is as I'm obsessing about trying to make sure I'm getting everything right. Like I'm going as far as I'm ordering all kinds of books that lay out galactic maps, that have specifications for starships. I'm trying to figure out where the batch is in the galaxy. I'm looking at quadrants and as I'm talking to the team, I'm like, yeah, can you guys help me find a planet that does X, Y, Z? And they were like, just make a planet up, just make it make sense. You can make a planet. I was like, I can make a planet. And they're like, yeah. I was like, can I make two? They said, go for it. And that was a surprise. I didn't expect. It was a pleasant surprise. And then a bit of trivia that came up during this process that I never ever noticed of all the Star Wars I consume is that there's very little paper in the galaxy.
Mm.
Like, you don't really have characters walking around. Like, say there's a character who's bookish. Like, that's not really a thing if there aren't physical books. And so to use that term in regard to say I might have had a character at one point pull a notebook out of his pocket to jot something down, and they're like, no, no, there's very little paper in the galaxy,
Mm.
so it wouldn't be that. So that was a bit of trivia, and I never ever noticed it before.
That's fascinating. Those are like the little things that really uh excite me about the Star Wars universe, and um also being able to tell stories within it is like, I think authors being able to participate in really like filling out the so-called canon and like just being able to make up a planet if they want to. That planet exists now. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
exists. It's in like whatever database, and someone else can now use that planet. And you made that up. That is so cool.
it is very cool. I mean, I think about it quite a bit. Like I've really contributed to canon, and when I first got the job, I told a friend that I was nervous. And he said, why? You're only manipulating canon for the most beloved franchise on the planet. What is there to be nervous about? I didn't say he was a good friend. I'm just playing. He's a good
Uh,
friend.
I mean, it's intimidating, but also like that's forever.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
forever.
yeah,
Amazing. Amazing. I bet that feel like now that you've done it and like the book is out by the time that people are listening to this, you have done it. Like there's no going back now. You can't
yeah. There's
turn
no going
back.
back.
You've
There's
done the
no
thing.
going back. I got a copy. I mean, there's a box of the book right here next to me. It's there. It's done. What an experience.
Amazing. Amazing. Especially like having already been a fan.
Oh,
And you're
absolutely. I mean,
like, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are people who come into it fresh and maybe they're just such great storytellers
Mhm.
that they don't need the background to adapt. But I mean, I don't know that I could have done it without my previous Star Wars background. You know,
Mm.
like I envy writers that can come into established universes clean and just
Mm.
say, "Well, I got an idea that fits."
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are challenges to both, but yeah, I think like the just the fact that like already being like immersed in the universe, like you can tell this story and like you can pull things into it as
Yeah,
you're doing that. That you're like, oh, like I remember reading about this, or I liked this, or like this inspired me to write this. And I think that probably just makes it so fun. You know,
absolutely.
it's writing, it's work, but also like you're writing Star Wars, so like it's at the end of the day, it's fine, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, on one level, it's fan fiction I'm getting paid for. Like you can't really beat that.
The dream.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the fact that kind of in the process of creating the story, you had to also create some new characters. Something about Star Wars that has always been true is in most of the stories, or yeah, in most of the stories that we get the hero's perspective. We also often get the perspective of the villain or the antagonist. Even if the story's not from their perspective, there's always that switch to, now we're on the Death Star as we were just on Tatooine or something like that. Um, and Sanctuary is the same, where like you do follow Clone Force 99, the heroes of the story, but you also get to kind of look in on these villains or the antagonists in the story as well. And I'm curious for you as a writer and as a Star Wars fan, um, is it more challenging to write from the perspective of heroes or from the perspective of villains?
Oh, that's a good question. I find it tougher to write villains.
Mm.
The reason being, and I'm sure this is not the case for everybody. So please know I'm not speaking for writers think like this,
Mm.
but this is how it is for me. Is when I'm writing a villain, I have to be careful because I think it's very easy to lean into the great villains you've seen throughout your life. Like for
Mm.
example, Darth Vader is one of the greatest villains ever created. And so you don't want to lean into a villain, particularly in Star Wars, that reads too closely to Darth Vader, but I think you could do that unconsciously. If you want to create a serial killer, is if you're thinking someone who's diabolical and smart, it's easy to start writing that character and not realize I'm writing Hannibal Lecter.
Mm.
And so in order to try to mitigate that, I tried to get into the crevices of the villain that feel very far from villainy. And as I say this, I realize, well, maybe this is a little bit of Hannibal Lecter too. But there is a villain in the book where, as brutal as that villain is, there's a moment where he tries to comfort another character with soup.
Mm.
And so I try to lean into things like that to remind the reader that bad guys are not bad 100% of the time. And I think that at least avoids like the kind of cartoonish mustache twirling.
Yeah.
I'm a villain 100% of the day, which I don't think anybody is.
Yeah. Sometimes heroes do bad things and sometimes villains do good things. It's
Mhm.
I think the longer Star Wars has gone on, the less the more like middle ground we see where, we get more insight a lot of the times into the villains, maybe like their backstory of like, oh, this is why they are the way that they are, or we have our heroes who maybe have pasts where that they're not proud of. And um it's a reflection of like people are people and not everyone's going to do the right thing all the time, which I think makes for a more interesting story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes it. I mean, no matter where you are in the universe, I think if you're telling a story, it's nice to be able to show the humanistic side of stuff in the sense of we're complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that you got to do in this book is you got to explore further the relationship between Fee and Tech, which is something we got to see a little bit in the show in season two, and I won't spoil anything for anyone in any regard, but it didn't work out the way that we all thought it would in the
Right.
end. But being able to, go further back in the timeline a little bit and to be able to put these characters together again, um, it's something you got to do, and I would love to hear about what that was like.
Well, I'll be trying to be careful to not spoil anything for anyone, but I will say it felt cathartic in a way
Mm,
because I got to write the kinds of scenes that I fully expected to see if things had gone differently.
mm,
And so it felt right to show a window of time where those two get to know each other more in a way that felt logical to me, given how we've already seen them interact. Um, I don't know how much more I can say here, but I
mm.
also tried to show a version of what a long-term situation might have looked like for them through observation of other characters.
Mm. These two together were some of my favorite parts of the show, and I think I could tell reading it that this bond between them meant a lot to you too, because we do get a lot of scenes between them where it's just, on the surface they might just be talking, but there's so many layers and there's so much happening underneath the actual words that they're saying, and I think it's perfect.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
That's one thing about, the Star Wars timeline being the way that it is, being able to, jump around and tell different stories at different points is you can have these moments where you do go back and get to have more time with these characters that you didn't get before, and it's good. It's comforting. It's you're able to revisit it, and I think that's nice.
I do too.
It's so hard to talk about these things without
Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah, yeah.
saying what
Like,
they're about.
I feel like I'm dodging landmines. I'm like, I gotta be careful. Can't say this. Can't say that.
But we're doing great. We're doing great. Um, I just I think that a lot of Star Wars fans, a lot of readers, and especially a lot of Bad Batch fans are really going to enjoy this book, and I hope that they enjoy it as much as I did. I read it like in a couple days. I was having a great time. Um, and I have not listened to the audiobook yet, but I can imagine that that is also pretty great. So, whatever form people end up consuming the story, and I'm pretty sure everyone's gonna have a great time, like me.
I am super excited for the audiobook. I haven't heard it yet either.
Mm.
Um, but I love the Star Wars audio productions anyway, so
Mhm.
I'm really excited to see what this one is.
Yeah, I believe it's Mark Thompson. So we all know, or maybe not all of us, but Mark Thompson is great. So I'm sure whatever we do get when we get around to listening to that will be pretty good. Um, I do have one more question for you, and this is a question I like to ask everyone I can because everyone gives me a different answer, and that question is, when you hear the word Star Wars, what is the first image or thing that comes to your mind?
Oh, that's a great question too. Okay, so this I don't know if anyone said this before. This may be unexpected, but it's the truth. When I hear Star Wars, the first thing I think about is the Sarlacc pit because my first exposure to Star Wars was Return of the Jedi. I think we might have talked about this before a little bit. Return of the Jedi. I'm of the age where I was really starting to have consciousness and long-term memory right when Return of the Jedi came out. So the scene I played over and over is Luke giving Jabba the ultimatum on the plank. And then he does the thing where he drops down and flips
Yeah.
over and R2 shoots the lightsaber over to him. Like, first of all, when I'm watching him at the plank talking trash, when he's about to go into the Sarlacc. I'm like, how is this guy going to get out of this? I'm like 5 years old. How can he possibly get out of this? And then when he does what he does, I cannot tell you how many times I reenacted that with anything that could stand in as a lightsaber, broomstick, paper towel, tube, whatever. I was Luke flipping back onto the barge and fighting. I mean, that's my absolute first thing I think about because it's my earliest exposure to Star Wars. So I guess the simple answer is really I think about sand. Don't tell Anakin. Don't tell Anakin.
Don't tell him. I love that. And no one has given that answer because I really would be surprised if any two people gave the same answer because your answer to that question depends on not just what Star Wars means to you, but your first memory or the things that have stuck out to you the most, or, you know, the most impactful story that still sticks with you today. And any combination of those things is going to give you any number of answers. And I love yours. It's perfect. And that's a great scene too.
It's a wonderful scene.
And it's iconic, and you know, because as you're sitting here describing it, I'm seeing it happen in my head. You know, and whether that's from having seen that movie however many times or whatever it might be. I love it. And I've loved getting to talk to you again about this book. Still no spoilers, but once again, we did great. Not spoiling anything for anyone.
I think we walked the tightrope very well, Meg.
Oh, I think we did. This has been great. And if anyone out there wants a little bit more in-depth of a conversation between you and I about this book and Star Wars and other things, they can also pick up August issue of Star Wars Insider. And our conversation is in there. And that's also great. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for talking to me again. And let's do it again sometime.
Anytime you're available, I'm into it, Meg. This was fun.
Now This Is Lit is part of the Faraway Fandom Network. It is produced by Devor Montum and written, hosted, and edited by me. Jose Jimenez designed our podcast art. You can keep up with the show on Substack at Now This Is Lit, and find the show wherever you get your podcasts. There are so many ways you can support the show, and all of those ways are linked in the show description. The newest way is to become a member of our Patreon. For $1 a month, you can get access to an exclusive show and a sticker. And if we get 500 people to support the Patreon per month, I can hire an editor. That would be great for me, and maybe for you too. So if you'd like to support the show with just $1 a month, you can do it that way. Or you can just keep listening and sharing the episodes. That is also helpful, and I appreciate it. For more book reviews and Star Wars Book Celebration, follow Star Wars Book Reviews on Instagram and TikTok.